Hey, Gail.
Hey, Michael.
How are you?
Very good.
Oh, good.
Solved a couple of deep genealogy problems today. Have my glass of wine at the hand. I'm ready to go. Hi, Nate. Hi, Miriam.
Hello.
I guess that's one tangible benefit of doing meetings online. You can drink.
I choose not to do it visibly, so sometimes you'll see me just go to my name. If I have coffee in my mug, then hey, that's okay.
You just have to put it in your coffee mug.
Could do that. It doesn't
Yeah,
taste the
yeah.
same.
Nate's drinking whiskey.
Do you want to confirm or deny that, Nate?
Just water. Yeah. My whiskey drinking days are behind me.
But it's good Shutesbury water.
Delicious.
No,
I have friends in
Sometimes-
Cambridge who visit here periodically, and every time I go back there, they ask me to bring a gallon of Shutesbury water.
we sometimes bring water on trips with us just because it's so yucky some places.
Yeah, good stuff. Guaranteed. Nate, is that a new haircut? It's looking very,
Something's different.
I'm not wearing glasses. Maybe
Huh.
what's the haircut? It's,
I thought it was the beard.
it's getting longer. Everything's getting longer, I guess. So yeah.
It's
So
that
it's
shoots-
getting cold out. So
it
cover
is.
the face, yeah.
face muffler.
This is when men have an advantage. They can go to the face covering.
It
That's
makes a
true.
difference, honestly.
It does, I bet.
It does. Yeah.
I just
Well,
don't go out of the house.
See, you know how you're supposed to keep like your midsection warm? So the same strategy is like, since I don't have any hair,
Yeah.
keep my face warm. It sort of filters up. So,
I cannot get my video turned on.
why
That's
not?
really- I don't know. It's just not,
Good thing you have a pretty picture.
I see your beautiful painting.
thank you. Well, maybe it's coming on now.
Maybe.
Weird.
Nate, I must tell you, I've been getting all kinds of rapturous comments on your presentation at the CCA. I'll bring that up at the meeting.
That's great to hear.
Very clear, very well paced. Lots of good comments from friends here.
Maybe when Paul Lyon steps down, they could be the next moderator. So even keeled, clear presentation.
It's your face. Do you ever thought of being an instructor, a teacher, lecturer, or something?
I was an English teacher for several years
There you have it.
in a previous life. So
Hey, Zoe.
Hello.
Hey, Graham.
How are you?
Hey, there's Leslie coming on.
Yeah. Almost coming on. It's always interesting to watch those little dots.
How we come
Dance.
to, yeah.
How are you, Graham?
I have an audio problem. It won't play. Excuse me, I gotta get earphones.
We can hear you. There's Leslie. Hi,
Hi, Leslie.
Leslie.
Good evening, everyone.
You taking us for a walk?
Eh,
I'm setting up a fire, so I'm here, I'm listening.
Zoe, you're looking very literati with the glasses. Very impressive.
Yes, thank you. I get significantly more intelligent when I
You can see things.
when I can see things. Yeah, it helps me
Seeing
be more
matters.
discerning.
Yeah, how about that?
Yeah. Well, why don't I call us to order while Graham's getting his audio together? And oh, actually, we have to wait because I think Graham is taking minutes. Let's see. Can you hear us, Graham? This is all a ploy, so he doesn't take minutes.
Like the rabbit ears.
No luck?
Hello, hello, testing.
Sorry about this. I can't hear any of you. I'm going to get the audio off of my iPhone, I guess.
Mix and match.
Just ignore me. Talk among yourselves.
So Zoe, is Eric coming in a little while?
Yeah, Eric, I told him that he was scheduled for 7:15.
Cool, great. That's perfect. Thank you for setting that up.
Yeah, I'm really, really excited about it. I got a preview of his presentation. It looks really good.
Cool. Oh, good. Well, here's a question. Should we just do minutes while we're waiting? Get that done with?
Yeah,
Okay. So I don't have this. Do I have a motion to consider the minutes of whatever November something was?
8th, the 8th.
8th.
I move to approve the minutes of November 7th meeting, 8th.
8th. Got a second? Anyone want a second?
I'll
I'll
second.
second it.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
I have some edits.
Okay. And,
So
Zoe, can you pull them up on the screen or you want me to?
If you could, it would be great. I don't actually know how to do that.
Okay, one sec. Let me get there. There we go. No, that's the wrong ones. Weird. Hold on one sec. I'm not finding him readily. There we go.
Not calendar.
Oh, those are mine. Sorry.
well, I can just walk through if you want.
No, I got it here. Let me just get on the screen.
So did you get the couple of suggestions I sent you?
Okay.
Yes, I just haven't had a chance to integrate
Okay,
changes.
I'll see if I can pull it up at this end.
Here we go.
Nothing
Shouldn't we-
momentous.
Okay, whoop. All right, let me
I
reduce
don't
this.
like have a way to write down what is being edited.
I can do it
Okay,
because I got a real document.
thank you.
Sure.
Okay, well, here are my comments. You ready, Michael?
Yeah, I was just gonna go from my comments because I already have some, oops. I already have them marked up.
Okay,
Wi-Fi cellular data.
Excellent minutes, though, Zoe.
Okay,
Succinct,
So-
to the point, clear.
so Miriam, why don't you give me yours and then we can just
yeah,
look at them all.
so first is Leslie's last name, only it's
Yeah, I got it.
CE. Got that?
Yeah,
And
And
then
yours.
my name, a capital F.
yep,
And then down to the next paragraph under public comment, the lack of proper procedure. I just don't know if that would be exactly the way I would describe the issue. I would just say, maybe the need for proper, I just don't want it to sound like we're accusing another board of not having proper procedures.
Where are you looking?
under public
That
comment,
paragraph, yeah.
yeah, I'll make it a smidge bigger.
Okay,
There, this part.
Or
How about
perhaps, I would just say point to the, maybe the need for,
proper procedure.
I think need for,
Need
Okay.
for,
I
Yeah.
would be better than saying, assuming.
Lack of understanding.
Yeah. And then, there's a couple, you got that?
Yeah,
Okay, and then next updates, National Grid, I would just capitalize the G.
yep,
And then down under previously discussed committee initiatives, if you want to scroll down to
Yep.
that.
There you go.
It says don't need tax equity partner anymore. I thought the way it was described is that there did need to be a tax equity partner in the model that was being discussed for community solar.
I think they used to need one. I don't know. I mean, we could just take that out. It doesn't change much.
I mean, it's just, there was a lot of details that were being discussed. And so that one is just one of the, we're not really covering all of them. So I think, I'm not sure. She was talking about their model being, including a tax equity partner. I remember that, an investor, an equity tech.
I thought there was something that changed after the new, what did I write down?
Okay, well, maybe I misunderstood that, but since we aren't really explaining what that is and how it, I think I would just take that sentence out.
This part.
That sentence, don't need tax equity partner anymore. I would just take that sentence out personally.
Is that okay with everybody?
Sure.
Okay,
And that's all I have.
okay. And I just had a couple additional ones. I wrote out Board of Health right there, you can see. And then just to make it clear that we weren't doing the National Grid thing, I just wrote this is being managed by the town administrator. So everyone knows that that's the case. And I clarified this because Gail does town announce, I do e-cricket next door. And then I added this because I think this is part of the important part, just that Mary Ann, was concerned, as is Leslie expressed, that.
Where are you? Can we see this?
Oh, you can't see it?
Nope. I can't
Not
move
the
the
part you're
sheet.
talking about.
Right here. Right here.
Updates?
I just added this.
But I can't see your cursor moving.
I
Really?
can't either.
Oh, hold on. I'll stop sharing and I'll share it again. Weird. Sorry.
Never mind.
Yeah. Can you see it now?
Oh, there we
Yes. Oh, what a difference that makes.
Oh,
Yay.
sorry. I guess we're looking at the other one. So all I said, this highlighted part is what I added.
Okay,
Solar farm result in deforestation and environmental change, because that was the concern expressed. So, and then I just wrote out regenerative design group, since no one will know what RDG is. So if people good with this? Do we need to discuss any more? Gail?
suggestions from the very top. Guest, Mary Ann Connor.
Oh, here.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay.
And Mary Jo Johnson.
right.
Is it
Well,
separate
she's in the
words?
public comments, so she
Yeah,
has a
but
different
if she
role, I
but if
think.
but if she attends the meeting,
Yeah, she's captured.
all the attendants have to be listed.
Okay,
And Mary Jo does not have an E in her name. It's just
Okay.
Mary Jo, J-O.
Okay.
Oh, and also
Okay.
Mary Lou Conca was also there.
so she should be a guest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is our biggest turnout ever.
We're
And
getting
maybe
so,
and maybe
well known.
say guests, plural, since they're
There's
Okay,
one,
then
there's one
Michael?
collective, yeah.
Then go down to the very last paragraph. Next to the last, sorry. Gail suggested propositioning. No, I did not suggesting propositioning anyone. Thank you.
the company.
Zoe, do you have the wording for what I suggested for a change there? The point is to investigate the use of commercial rooftops.
Well, maybe there needs to be some context, because it was all in the context of discussing the challenges for siting.
Right. And
And
the main problem is that we do not have land surface
that's owned by the town that is
Correct.
easily, so I think that, and I think that that is an important context for the discussion.
Yeah,
Good. Yep.
how's that?
Yes.
Okay,
Thank you.
welcome. We'll have you propositioning somebody at some point.
Don't you be putting that in print. Thank you.
So any other discussion? Okay, so I'll call the roll to approve the minutes. Gail,
Yes, aye.
Leslie,
Hi, and thank you, Miriam, for catching the spelling on my name. I didn't even catch that.
Yeah.
Zoe,
Aye.
Nate,
Aye.
let's see,
Me.
Miriam. Miriam,
Aye.
thank you. Graham, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Could you hear me before? My audio's not working on my laptop. There's some-
Yes.
yeah. So you could hear me. I can't hear you. Yeah, but
Yeah.
now I've got the audio on. Yeah. So yeah, aye.
Okay, and I'm an I. So approve the minutes. So that's good. So Zoe, I'll send this to you,
Okay, and then
or I can just save it and I'll send it to. Yes, Gail.
Send it to me and I'll convert it to a PDF and launch it to the town clerk to post.
Okay, I'll do that. So Graham, I have bad news for you. You're supposed to be taking minutes. Can you still do that with your technical choreography there?
You're muted.
But he heard us, so that's good. Okay, cool. So I will open it up for public comment, of which I don't think there is any because we don't have a public.
Well, there's an iPhone listed here.
That's Graham.
Ah,
He's got two presences. So we can wait for Eric to come because he's due shortly. And I guess, did everyone get to see the agenda? Does the agenda look good? Otherwise,
get the what?
the rest of the agenda. Here's Mary Jo. So. And hopefully Eric will show up shortly. So it sounds like the agenda is good for everybody.
Yeah, I'm excited about our guest and also Mary Jo being back for the Beavers and hearing about regenerative design.
Great.
So awesome.
Cool. Cool. I sort of don't want to launch into anything while waiting for Eric, but why don't we'll just do a brief updates. Anyone have any updates that they want to share? It's Leslie.
All right. Well, I've been still pursuing real community solar, and I was happy to hear more that, the finance committee might be involved in potentially getting us some funds to have PV Square look at 5 sites in town so that we can move forward with that. I spent a long time researching some more stuff, and I think it's really a viable green alternative for the town to own something that's green. And then we can reduce our taxes for real. But it, like anything else, it's going to take time, and potentially maybe there'll be a committee of people who want to work on it with me. Maybe more people from here. I'm still interested.
Great, thank you. Gail.
Could you explain that, please, Leslie? Did you go to the FinCom and get?
I was going to jump in. I emailed Leslie and told her that I had inquired with AJ about the ECAC being able to get put into the finance committee budget cycle. And my thought was, once we identify what our priorities are, if there's a need to ask for money, that will sort of be on their dance card. So I haven't heard back from him yet. I know that they usually start meeting in January, so I wanted to just get ahead of that. But I won't present to them until we know what our priorities are. And then when I have a date, I'll let everybody know. So anyone who wants to come. So that was that. And I think later when we talk about the priorities, we can pick up some of the, the research stuff, because I think that's worth going. Miriam, you didn't raise your hand, right?
About what?
Just now. That was just
I'm-
that was just an elbow thing.
I was just touching your back of the head.
Okay, cool. So Zoe, do you want to, can you text Eric to make sure he knows that how to find us? And we can flip things if we need, if that's easier. I don't want to launch into a conversation that is 15 minutes if he shows up in 2. So.
Yeah.
Any other updates that people have, or did we cover them all? Okay, cool. We're doing the end of the agenda first today.
Yeah, I was muted, but I said, I think we can launch into something else.
Okay,
And he'll just jump in.
okay. Well, why don't we go to the next thing, which is debriefing for
Wait,
the
wait.
CCA. Well, yes, Gail,
Shouldn't we vote on the minutes?
we did.
We did.
Yeah,
Okay.
signed, sealed, and delivered.
Never mind.
So Zoe, being that you're the youngest among us, you know where that reference is from?
I don't.
Oh.
See, you can't
I
make
thought
me
it
have
was a
to-
Gale original.
No,
Oh, no, 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 no. Oh, my goodness. I will send you.
it's Rosanna Dana from Saturday Night Live. Otherwise, oh, what's this? I'm spacing her name. Who's frizzy hair?
Yeah.
Oh, shit.
Uh-huh.
She died of cancer. She's great.
10 years
comedian.
ago, ovarian cancer. Oh, she was fabulous. Yeah.
Yes.
Zoe, I will send you.
It's classic.
It is classic. Many classics.
Not only do you get to do civic duty by joining this, but you actually learn cultural references as well. It's, it's a twofer.
I'm finally going to become cool.
I wouldn't go that far. I mean, from us
You-
at least.
You
might
are
be
already cool.
Yeah, you're not gonna get it from us. So before Gail interrupted, why don't we just do a brief debrief about the CCA forum? So what'd you all think, or what'd you hear people thought? Gail, you want to kick us off since you were telling Nate? Can you guys hear me? Yes, okay. No one has any thoughts about the forum?
Oh,
That it was good.
Thank you. Leslie? Oh, you weren't, Leslie, you weren't there. Did you hear stuff?
What I heard is that there were a lot of people, well, there were 33 people there. I heard that from Michael. I heard that there were 10 of those people actually were from the serious community and were seriously concerned about aggregates being green. Deforestation to have solar didn't quite make it. And there were some other people who were concerned, and there were some people who were like, yeah. But I know there were some people concerned that we've got a lot of forest in Shutesbury that could be targeted if we go with aggregates. Some people are concerned, as am I, that would open up the door for Cinda Jones to say, yeah, we need some more clear cutting to put up solar arrays. So, but I also heard that that Nate did a fabulous job, which I'm not surprised. He's presented his slides several times to us, so I know it was polished. And yeah, so that's what I heard. People are concerned about the green nature of aggregates and the fact that there's no control on pricing.
Cool. Gail?
I had heard lots of comments from friends who reported back that it was clearly represented, answered the questions well. And is he teaching a university course?
Nate, what do you think as the presenter?
I wasn't sure how many people to expect, so I didn't know if 30 something people was large or small for this kind of public forum. But I thought the discussion was good. I mean, obviously, the main objective of the forum was to get some information out there and to solicit from community members their initial kind of reactions to the proposal. So it was good to capture some of that information. And I don't know if how we're thinking about either posting the results of some of our kind of fake whiteboard exercise. But one thing we did do is every question that we received, we tried to roll into new language for the FAQ. So that's something that is that we've drafted and that we're going to be able to circulate to the larger group, because I think yeah, it's really important to address these questions as they come up, because there will be other fora or conversations, and we want to make sure that people are getting accurate information about what CCA is and isn't. And so I was really pleased with how it went in that respect.
Great, thank you. Gail, you got another comment?
Yeah, I was impressed that I think there was only one vote for cost as being the primary concern. The rest were clearly energy sourced, which corresponds to what we found out in the survey earlier in the year, but also with what we've sort of heard from friends and neighbors too. So that in that way it was very confirming. And 30 doesn't represent the entire community given, but still. These were folks interested enough to show up with questions. And there are other folks, I think, who probably went to the FAQs and decided they had enough, that they knew how they wanted to vote come a special town meeting. So, yeah.
Anyone else have any thoughts about, you want to share? Yeah,
I just want to underscore what a great presentation Nate did. It's really very well done and very helpful.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think the two things that struck me, one was, Gail, to your point, it was interesting that the voting responses, that just cost as its own driver was not compelling to people, that it was really cost combined with green was the one main vote getter. And then the other one was solar generation without cutting down trees was the other one that, so I think, again, it's only 30 people in town, but those were people who, were more actively interested and showed up. So I think that's helpful. And when we get closer, of course, we'll do a broader survey of that, but I think that was interesting. I also thought we had good representation from other committees that might be, so like having Gary was there for recycling was good. And at least Rita and Melissa were there from select board. I couldn't tell if Eric was there or not. But it seemed like we had some other folks from different committees, which was great. So all in all, I mean, it seemed like it achieved our goal of putting out information and providing an opportunity to learn. Graham.
You're muted.
Yeah, so
Oh,
I'll hold my,
Oh, no.
my hearing thing away. Yeah, one thing that we should probably keep in mind is that we won't be able to actually get exactly what everyone thinks. I mean, as you said, it's not representative of 30 people, or even if we're 100 people, but we'll solve that problem not by characterizing it as we know exactly what you want, but by offering options to give choices. So,
right.
So people we won't need to know going in, except in general terms, or the select board or whoever. But we will have some idea, and then we offer options, right?
Right, exactly. Good point. Yeah, and the one follow-up that came, I responded to Melissa and thanked her for her comments about conservation. I think it came up, and she actually said, that if we wanted her to attend an ECAC meeting and have a conservation conversation, that would be good. And I mean, in my email to her, I said, the energy generation is usually the sexy part that everyone talks about, but they don't necessarily talk about the conservation part, which is equally part of the equation. So if we decide we want to have a conversation. Not that she has all the answers, but, she offered to participate. Gail?
Given her remark about they have such a low energy use at their house, and as if they had done things to make that possible, I sent her a question whether she would be willing to be a case study for given some baseline that they did these things and this was the effect, all relevant to their KWH use. Haven't gotten a response back, but use her as these are the things you can do to your house to decrease energy use, and whatever means she did it with, whether she used UMass Save or whatever, I don't know, but she's not responded to that, but it would be a very nice case study if she'd be willing to do it.
Yeah. Graham?
It won't be energy reduction that'll actually be the trend. Because a lot of people, I know Miriam, we got heat pumps. We will be getting electric cars, so it actually will be using more electricity. My electric use hasn't doubled right now, but we got heat pumps and it's massively different. So we won't be able to sort of. I mean, it's good to be conservation, but it won't be reduction that we're going to typically see as a trend.
Right, but it'd be containment. So rather than sort of like really expanding, you'll partially expand.
A large expansion. My electricity usage is more than doubled with heat pumps.
Right. But would you say that you did like insulation and all that kind of stuff in advance? So
yeah.
I mean,
You have to.
Yeah, so if you had a leaky house and then you increased your utilization, then conservation would make sense. Like if you were to, so I mean, I think one thing without getting too much into it is we could, both Zoe and Leslie, have expressed interest in like what can residents in town do in their life, and this might be one of those conversations where we could talk about, what's available as a homeowner or a resident to, do in terms of the, for those not jumping into the heat pump, solar, electric car world. What can we do? So it might be a topic we want to pick up somewhere, in the next few months. So I guess the last thing with CCA.
I was just, Michael, can I just make one comment?
Of course.
Before we move on from that? There are other, the state is doing and making an effort to educate the public about energy conservation and winterization. And so I don't think we need to duplicate that. I think, we can possibly, unless there's something that is not being accomplished, I think, kind of making these resources available and, maybe on our website and, maybe, thinking about how we can push this information out to the public. But, I think there are other organizations that are doing more than we could do to collect information about how to reduce your carbon footprint.
Yeah.
But we have the UMass or Mass Save stuff information on our website. My point was that because she came with, we have a very low use, that we could use her as a real life example, not just the theoretical, you can do these things or you have these resources, but here is a local household who has made these steps with these effects on their electric use. And that just seems to me much more tangible, much more relatable to folks here in town. That's all.
Yeah, I'm sort of thinking those lines too, but we can discuss it if we get closer, that there's, there are resources out there, but having neighbors sort of explain what they did and how they did it, because, no one's going to sort of spend time and sit down with you over a period of time at Mass Save or something and sort of talk about, how it worked for you. They're just going to schedule you and that's about it.
Yeah.
So anyway, so Leslie.
Well, I'm going to follow up with Zoe because I think we also, Zoe and I, can be really good resources in terms of our lifestyle, water usage, cooking, lack of pesticides, etc. So Zoe, okay if I reach out to you and maybe we meet for a walk and talk about what we can add to the conversation besides insulation?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think also, if Eric is able to present today, I'm excited about what his group is doing in terms of kind of educating people about how to manage the property that they have, the actual like land that they have, in a way that sinks more carbon and attracts more pollinators and
Do we
kind of
know, does
handles
he know
water.
how, did he get a link to the meeting?
I asked him if he knew where to find the link, and we went over that when we met. So I don't know. It's possible.
Wonder if
he-
maybe somebody could email him the link, just in case he didn't know where to find it.
Do I have?
Yeah, I can do that.
Okay, cool. That'd be great. Thank you.
Yeah.
So I guess the last thing on CCA is in terms of next steps. I mean, right now, from what Rita said, there's no scheduled date for a special town meeting, so that would be the immediate next step. So I think we're sort of in a holding pattern until we find that out. Does anyone have any other thoughts besides that? Nate?
Just, I had committed to circulate the updates to the FAQ. And I would like to do that to the whole group to get everybody's feedback on that before posting it. So
Great, okay.
I'll do that.
Yeah, and so if you send it out, we'll just send you directly, so we don't do it open meeting law problems. The other thing, before I get to you, Gail, is I have emailed Grace to get a copy of the recording because I wanted to post the recording as well as the slides. I got a request for that yesterday as well. So I'm just waiting on Grace. Gail?
My question to you earlier today was, if the select board does not set up a special town meeting for the rooftop or whatever, do we as a committee have the right to call for a special town meeting for CCA?
No, we would just ask, we can only request that the select board do it, but
To be
Hey.
on one that's already,
yeah, I mean, yeah, it's the town meetings are called by the select board unless there's a petition from, I guess, residents, but there's too much expense and hassle involved. We would win no friends and we'd probably get people pushing back. So I think if they don't do, I'm a little surprised because I thought the school roof was something that was pressing, so we shall see. I'm sure something, I mean, it's not like they don't have their hands full, but I thought the school roof was going to push something to a special town meeting. There's also just the updated solar bylaws are queued up for a special town meeting because the planning board had their hearing, so it would be at least 3 things if it comes around. So it seems like it makes sense to have one, but if I hear, I'll let you guys know. So why don't we shift gears to beavers, and then we'll come back to regenerative design if Eric shows up. Does that make sense? It's 3:37, so we're not too early. And Mary Jo, thank you for coming back. So, last time Mary Jo shared her thoughts in context of public comments, and we had a brief conversation, but I didn't want to sort of eat up too much time, and I wanted to have it be its own agenda item so that's what we're doing tonight. So I guess I'll just open it up and, if people either saw or read some of the resources that got shared around or have opinions. I know Miriam, you had commented on, I think, the video, but do people have thoughts on the topic? They just open it up. That's just a favor. You don't need to say anything, Leslie? Just a thumbs up?
Well, of course I have an opinion, but I'm interested in hearing Mary Jo first and Miriam. I mean, I think I'm probably on the same page as they are.
Okay.
And then I
Okay.
can comment afterwards. Yeah.
Sure, okay.
These are part of climate resilience.
Yeah, well, I don't want to put Mary Jo on the spot because it wasn't like it was planned to be a presentation, but I guess since no one's jumping to talk, Mary
Do
Jo,
you wanna, I mean, do you guys want to know about what was the upshot of the culvert down by the lake that was the
Sure.
issue of
Sure.
concern? Would that be
Yes.
helpful information?
Yes.
Yes, please.
So, there's a culvert under Lakeview Road. Is this okay, Michael? Do you want me
Yeah.
to do this? Okay.
Yeah,
So
well,
there's a
you put it- keep
culvert
it-
under,
just contain it to like why beavers are relevant as opposed to the whole stormwater
oh,
roads saga.
all right. Well, it
I know
was
that's
more like-
hard. That's why I'm
No, I was
saying. it.
really gonna like just talk about what the process was to give you guys kind of a flavor for
Yeah,
what goes into all of this discussion. So I've had a bunch of emails back and forth with the Board of Health and with Tim Hunting, and the Wendell Conservation Commission and the owners of Pine Brook Camp, who are on the other side of that culvert and use that culvert for kayak access to the lake. And, you know, the short answer is how complicated. It's very complicated. There's a bunch of different people with different constituencies and different needs to resolve the issue of how do you handle beavers in this one particular location. And I just want to kind of reflect that you know, we had a discussion about getting a consultation from a beaver expert who does flow protection devices. And there may or may not be an option that's available at that location. So this is an ongoing challenge.
Yeah. I guess the thing, the way I see us having a conversation, because I think there are different players who have different perspectives and different charges and needs, is, you know, for our committee, since we're looking at climate and, you know, and therefore resiliency, you know, part of the conversation is if we look at how policies or treatment of beavers in town has a positive effect in terms of resiliency. You know, and then one could have another party or committee in town who says, well, we see it this way, you know, so we can have a conversation, but I think from our, you know, our committee, if we wanted to have a position or have thoughts and contribute to the conversation from a resiliency perspective, this would be the place to sort of develop that. And we could also say, well, we don't want to take that position, but it seemed like this is the place to sort of sort that out. I guess where I was going, Mary Jo, is if, you know, given that you sort of initiated this, if you had your druthers and, you know, the Energy and Climate Action Committee, you know, took a position, what would you be asking or recommending that we consider?
Well, I guess if, in terms of what I see as the big picture, I recognize that any individual situation is going to have a lot of different factors that go into a decision-making process. But for me, I see it as kind of like I don't know if microcosm is exactly the right word, but like when we're looking at climate change and we're looking at decisions related to climate change, I think we can either take a position where we're like, oh, we're going to build a lot of stuff and we're going to continue to, you know, continue to grow and support the lifestyle to which we've become accustomed, and we don't really care about what's in place right now. Or we can take a look at kind of like nature-based solutions and go, well, you know, what's already here, and what could potentially work if we just stopped making it not work. And I think that the issue of beaver is one of those situations where, you know, historically, beaver created tons of wetlands, and in cooperation with Native people, created a beautiful environment that was working, you know. And then, you know, Europeans came on the scene. They saw the value of beavers, and you know, unfortunately, their immediate response was to kill them all, which makes absolutely no sense. And in some respects, I mean, it's just a little, maybe a little philosophical for you all, but my thought is that we still have that colonizer mentality in our head, where we're just really not thinking about anything except for how we can get what we need from the natural resources that we have, without considering the cost, without considering the true value of those natural resources, because those are really what support our life. And so beaver is one of those things that, you know, if we figured out a way to stop killing them, and a process for looking carefully at where we build, what we're building, and whether it's going to interfere with a natural system that could potentially work to support our life if we just learn to fit into that, that'd be a good idea. And you know, when I started to look at this, I was looking at how just in the heart of people, they just don't want to do this. You know, people just don't want to kill beaver and throw their bodies away. So like, and there's a reason for that. I mean, I think more and more the consciousness of people is beginning to change. There's funding from the state of Massachusetts for nature-based solutions. And I think it would be really interesting to potentially look at our beaver issues as a nature-based solution, one of potentially many nature-based solutions that could be implemented in Shutesbury, because we have a lot of nature going on here. So, I mean, I would say you could probably even, like, if you wanted to look seriously at nature-based solutions, maybe beaver, maybe other things too, maybe there would be a way to get some support for doing education. I mean, I tuned in early because I thought you're a person that was going to be speaking about regenerative stuff might touch on similar topics, you know, because really the question is, do residents in Shutesbury, well, first of all, we know that they care. So are we then providing them with the resources that they need to implement regenerative nature-based solutions where they live? And, you know, so there are a lot of things about beaver that I learned when I did all of this research that I didn't know. And there's a lot of misinformation that gets thrown out. Like, you know, beaver carry giardia. You know, everybody thinks that that's true. It's actually not true. I mean, they do, but no more than dogs or humans. And usually humans are responsible for that. So there's things that we could do that would educate people about the role of beaver, about climate change. And it would be kind of a fun, to me, kind of a fun community building experience. And like I said, maybe bundled in with some other nature-based solutions that you might want to talk about with people.
Yeah.
So that's my little thing. I'm done.
Thank you. Thank you. And I do think, and you know, my sense, given that we're a town committee, is thinking about how do we present it to the town and what's the context. So I think the nature-based solutions, based on, you know, my experience, I mean, that's something that the state's pushing. So the municipal vulnerability preparedness requires nature-based solutions, you know, so I think there's a natural home there, so to speak, that if ECAC is going to say, you know, either we're applying for an MVP grant and we want to do nature-based solutions, or recommending to the town that as it proceeds with certain situations, that this is the menu of nature-based solutions that we consider, that's a conversation that I think we can initiate. Mike, you know, one could always suggest a town policy. I don't think it would be fun. I think it would be highly controversial. So my sense is there will be people on either side of this that have strong opinions. Doesn't mean we shouldn't step into it if it makes sense from a resiliency perspective, but we'd want to step into it with eyes open is, I guess, my battle-worn Shutesbury experience. Gail?
I think that the first question, though, that Mary Jo brought, as much as I can sympathize with the point of view, the question is, does or should ECAC have a role in that? And it seems to me that it's better situated, particularly given the charge to the ECAC. I think it's better situated. The Beaver question is better situated with Concom, Board of Health, maybe Planning Board in terms of policy toward natural resources. But I think it does not fit easily under the ECAC charge given by the select board.
Okay, yeah. I get, I'll just respond since no one's jumping up. I think as a standalone, I would agree, but I think nested within, so we're going to talk about our priorities and, stormwater, for example, is something that's come up. And so wetlands manage stormwater, they create retention. So I think there are ways where it's relevant in terms of resiliency and, and flooding, containment of flooding. So if we're thinking about what a changed climate's going to create and how do we deal with that changing environment, then if beavers, that's what I think, like it's a menu of options. So, just using a crass thing, like if you have steep roads with pavement, you're going to have lots of runoff and that has an impact. If you have beavers creating wetlands, that's a mitigation strategy. So I think it's a part of a larger conversation. I would agree that, ECAC standing up and saying we're recommending a policy on beavers for town meeting to vote on. There's not enough context for that. I think, Board of Health would have an opinion, Concom might have an opinion. I think we can have it in terms of resiliency in a changing environment context. Miriam.
Yeah. So yes, Concom and Board of Health play a role in some of this, and the Concom has had discussions. We've had some discussion. Mary Jo came to some meetings, and we had some discussion. And I imagine we'll continue to have some discussion with the Highway Department and Board of Health. And I think there might be a way for ECAC to play a role, and I'll sort of say what I think this is. So, we're talking about how beaver can play a role in climate resilience. And the go-to response from some people will be, but infrastructure also gets threatened by beaver activity. And that's what we're concerned about, is protecting infrastructure. And when beaver are too close to roads and too close to where people are living, then the conflict has to be resolved. And, our response might be, yes, but non-lethal approaches make more sense because you're not going to, it's humane and you're never going to trap your way out of having beaver in Massachusetts, given that we are, the previous generations trapping strategies are no longer allowed, the leg hold traps. But I think that, there are always non-lethal approaches, but they're labor intensive. For example, monitoring culverts where beaver are active, and then routinely with manual labor removing debris on a regular basis as maintenance is one strategy. It's not an easy strategy because it takes time and effort and awareness, but that's where I guess ECAC could be in a role in its role of having the kind of the bully pulpit around advising the town, could try to, help various stakeholders understand that it's worthwhile to commit to that labor, or to get neighborhoods to commit to assisting the town with volunteer effort if we don't have the paid personnel to do it. There's ways to do this, and it could be a community whole effort. So
Cool, thank you. Graham?
I was impressed or surprised by the research that maybe it was Mary Jo, someone sent us that water quality is improved by beaver activity, both in dry times when the water's low and when the water's high. And so, yeah, I think it's reasonable for at least ECAC to take a position about the merit, or trying to keep in mind the merit of favoring the beaver whenever we can. As everyone points out, we don't actually control we're not in control of anything here, but we can have a position that acknowledges that they have a role that is favorable to what we want to achieve. So and runoff, obviously, management. Some of my best neighbors are beaver, just around here, about 1,000 feet to the probably 700 feet to the south, and they're perfect neighbors as far as but they can't flood my property, and they don't flood anyone else's. And and the other one is fire control. As an Australian, I'm very aware that when woods dry out and then winds come up, that it's actually wonderful to have beaver keeping things damp over 500 feet away in the woods. So there's lots of benefits, I think, and we could acknowledge that without telling anyone what they have to do about beaver. So.
Thanks, Graham. Leslie?
Well, I also support ECAC supporting the beavers, and also everything that Miriam said and Graham said and Mary Jo said. I agree with, and just wanted to reiterate that I know that they trapped the beavers on Baker Road, and I think they killed them, but the beavers came back. So again, I think living in harmony with nature when we do live in the forest is key. And all the implements of gasoline and gunpowder, those are not sustainable green resources. I wouldn't want to see our town continue to use that to drive the beavers somewhere else to kill them. So
Great.
That's my 4 cents.
Great. Nate or Zoe, you want to chime in before you wrap it up?
I was curious about, because I was learning from Eric about the wetlands' ability to capture carbon, and that it's like incredibly high compared to even trees. And so that was another
Interesting.
benefit. But yeah, I like the idea of being able to like promote education around nature-based solutions without having to be telling people what to do. It's like you should consider the value of our resources, and I think as much as we can identify those resources and push them into the public eye, I don't know what that would look like workshops or Zoom meetings, kind of organizing things like that would be awesome.
Yeah, I think what it looks like is a good question. I have a suggestion just as the first step, which is, since we're a creation of the select board and supposed to report to the select board, I think it would be reasonable to just craft a letter to let them know that we had a discussion about this, that I think the general sentiment is there's value in thinking about how to protect and support, the coexistence of beavers for a variety of reasons. And if there was going to be a discussion about policy or how beavers are treated or, managed in town, that, ECAC would like to participate in that somehow. And if there was something that was queued up, we could actually have a more focused conversation. But at least to sort of put it on the select board's radar that we talked about it, and we're generally supportive of finding ways to work with coexistence with beavers. Does that sound like a reasonable kind of statement? And Gail,
Do you need some kind of a recommendation from this committee to do that?
I think that would be smart. You want to,
Just to get it on the record?
yeah, you want to make one?
Sure. I move that the chair of ECAC report to the select board that we as a committee are interested in being part of. Help.
Discussions, considerations?
Graham, go with him. Toward an overall
Yeah.
policy toward beaver contributions to natural resources in our town.
Okay, you got all
I'll
that right,
second
Graham?
that.
Yeah, something to the effect that that research we should coach it in frame it in terms of research suggests that beaver actually are very significant contributors when they're not in our way and when they're not causing problems. They should be therefore given. Yeah. However you want to say it, Michael, would be.
Okay, as long as, but the motion is basically to direct me to sort of communicate something
Yeah,
positive.
The motion, I would suggest the motion would be for you to frame the sense of our meeting as we've discussed it to the select board, and then you have
License.
we understand the spirit.
Cool, that sounds good, great. And Nate seconded, so any more discussion and then we'll just vote? Okay.
Go
Great
to
idea.
go.
Mary Jo.
I actually just want to throw out one thing and just for your consideration. I think a decision about what to do in various situations or establish a policy. It's weird how beaver get farmed out over at least 2 and possibly 3 committees. And I think that one thing that you've mentioned that's really kind of important is killing is not a sustainable solution, really, because you're just going to have to keep paying for killing over and over and over again. There actually is research to indicate that it is more expensive in the long run to pursue a trapping strategy than to implement, planning for these water level control devices and installation of them. So I feel like in some ways your statement would be way stronger if it came as not just from you, but potentially from Conservation Commission, who has already looked into those issues. And also maybe even from Board of Health, because the reason Board of Health is even in this conversation is because of the I'm thinking because of the misperception that beaver are causing giardia and polluting water.
Well, I think they're in it, in it, and I think we're in it as a Conservation Commission because the state law is written the way the state law is written, that we both have regulatory roles. So before anybody can do anything with beaver, the Board of Health has to be involved. And that's just the way the state law is written. So it's not even a choice on the part of our Board of Health. And then the Conservation Commission has to be involved if it's a non-lethal intervention.
Right.
I guess my point is if the statement were to come from all 3 bodies, it might be a stronger statement than
It would be
coming from you.
We can't.
We can't, I mean, each body's gonna have to decide for
Possible.
themselves. So, I mean, Miriam is a de facto liaison since she's the chair of the Concom, so she knows we talked about it. So it's
Well,
up to-
and we've already discussed wanting to play a role in this as a commission.
but But I think if each committee directs communications to the select board, the select board is going to know that 3 committees communicate on the topic. So
Okay,
it's more feasible than trying to coordinate. And that's just 3 committees agreeing to something would be a nightmare. Zoe,
Am I not? Can you hear me?
yeah,
I just also wanted to flag that Mary Jo had said in her Beaver letter that the
Beaver
statement
letter.
in the hazard mitigation plan
mhm,
that implies that beavers cause downstream flooding, that should be corrected. I think that could be helpful also.
okay. Thank you for pointing that out. Nate,
Yeah, I was going to ask if we have a liaison to the Board of Health, because I appreciate the complexity of coordinating a letter across 3 committees, but I am thinking about the gesture of at least CCing those other committees, when we eventually get our own letter together. I think that could be a friendly nudge, to encourage the other committees, and at least like keep them appraised. But I wasn't sure if we had a liaison to the Board of Health.
I don't think we do, and I'd say we can also just empower someone to sort of be our messenger if someone wanted to do that. And just sort of, I mean, because like, if you wanted to go to one of their meetings, Nate, and we could just ask you to, get on their agenda and say, this is what we're talking about, wanted to give you a heads up. I don't think you're, just like I'm going to convey something to the select board, I think we can, in the same spirit, sort of say, for purposes of communication between committees, that's part of what we were talking about at the last few meetings. So I don't think that's unreasonable, if you wanted to do it.
I've had a lot of communication with the Board of Health about this in my Concom hat, I have to
Yeah.
say. And we've done a couple of site visits with the Board of Health to look at some particular situations. The feedback I've gotten, and just so you're aware, is that the Board of Health is not entirely comfortable being in this role. They feel like they don't really have the knowledge base and resources to assess and kind of make policy recommendations. That they've been basically going by what the town is telling them about infrastructure risks. So kind of leaving up to the town to make a decision about how they want to handle a beaver situation in any given location. That's kind of been what the practice has been. And then the Board of Health has just kind of supported that. So,
That's,
again, it's kind of like who's advising who.
yeah, well, I would say, given that, and just the fact, I sort of want to wrap this up because I want to get
Yeah.
to our priorities, is we'll just leave it to each committee will communicate with the select board. I mean,
Yeah.
about the Concom. And if Nate, if you want to go to the Board of Health at some point, you just let us know. And I think anyone can probably just get on their agenda. So let me do a vote on this, empowering me to communicate, and then we'll wrap this up. So Miriam,
Aye.
Graham, Nate,
Aye.
Zoe,
Aye.
Leslie,
Aye.
Gail,
Aye.
and I'm an aye. Okay, 7-0. So, Mary Jo, thank you. So we're going to shift to the last. I'm assuming Eric's not going to make it, so we'll put him on for the January meeting. It'll be a New Year's expectation for something fun. So shifting gears, I want to just do our priorities, and thank you all for doing that really long list. I know most of you did it. And, what I sent out, and I'll share it on the screen if it's helpful, but the idea was if you look at the hazard mitigation plan and the municipal vulnerability plan as the 2 documents that really, are informing a chunk of our charge, it's a huge list of recommendations. So how do we prioritize and sort through it so we're not sort of bouncing from one place to another, and we actually focus our attention and raise something up, or at least organize our work for the next year. So that was the goal. And I think we achieved some kind of clarity in, in terms of the top three. I will share my screen just so we have a visual. So you all can see this, right? So that's a yes?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So, I mean, this is, Leslie and Miriam ended up not filling it out, so we have 5 votes. So the most one can have is 5 for something.
I'm sorry about that also, guys. I was, my apologies.
Well, you had lots going on in your.
Otherwise occupied, you think?
Maybe.
Yes. One could say.
Can you make it bigger, Michael?
Yeah, give me 1 sec.
Yeah.
I just wanted to, there we go. How's that?
It's a little better, but I'm sure the discussion and I know
Yeah.
I looked, in my defense, I know I looked at it many times, and being a very creative woman, I sent you a list of my priorities, ignoring the I was like, here's where I think we should go. I think I sent it twice, and I looked
Yeah.
at it twice, or if
Yep.
not more.
Yeah, that's
Anyway.
okay. That's okay. I mean, what I think this does is focuses our discussion a little bit, because, there's the quote unquote voting for what we thought were the top 3, and then just to see what the constellation of results are. But if we're comfortable with it, it sort of, it shrinks the discussion a little bit and says, if these are what, some or most of us think are the priorities, we can sort of embrace them. There's a total of 10. I'll just walk through, let's, yeah. I'll try to make it a little bigger still, if that's helpful. How's that?
Sure.
Okay, so this first one is, it's assessing green infrastructure opportunities around stormwater. So it's, it's mostly about stormwater and resiliency. It's also about looking at town regulations to support green infrastructure and low impact development around roadway projects in particular. And then, it calls out focus on Locks Pond Road and Lake Wyola, and opportunities to reduce runoff for private driveways, which is the topic that we wrote our unsuccessful MVP grant for this past year. So, it's about managing stormwater essentially via green infrastructure. That got 4 votes. So significant. It's the only one that got 4. The next one is researching municipally owned solar installations on town-owned buildings. Maybe using a municipal light plant, though I think someone crossed that out as a comment. So we may or may not be, that was Gail, that, we could do it that way, we don't have to. And then secondarily, it's conducting an assessment of a microgrid feasibility. And I know we talked about that a few months ago. That seems a little bit less likely, but that got 3 votes. And then the only other one that got more than 1 vote was developing a comprehensive invasive species management plan, both inventorying and then figuring out how to implement, with the idea being that if you have invasive species, they're going to affect open space and forests, which can compromise resiliency. So those were the sort of the 3 vote getters, if you will. And then the others are all got 1 vote, and I'll just say them out loud. One's conducting an inventory of culverts and bridges and ranking them. And that's to deal with flooding resiliency and storm hardening. Again, looking at green infrastructure, low impact design, and nature-based solutions, which is what we were just talking about in terms of Beaver. Updating the town's master plan to address a full range of zoning changes regarding climate change mitigation and adaptation. That got 1 vote. Establishing a regulatory review process for future developments to address impervious cover and manage stormwater. So stormwater is definitely a theme. And looking at town regulations and bylaws regarding stormwater management and flood mitigation risks. So that's similarly related to the green infrastructure. Another theme which is separate, which I think Gail supported, is identifying vulnerable populations and fostering communications network in advance of a hazard situation. So the idea being that there's going to be some folks in town who are more vulnerable to climate-related storms or extreme temperatures, things along those lines, and creating a communications network to support those people, especially not being required on the internet. Miriam, I'm just going to go through these and then we'll circle back and actually have a conversation. There's supporting incentives to allow homeowners to have self-sufficiency off the grid for solar and to explore potential regulatory barriers, incentivizing battery storage for home installations. And then lastly, educating private owners of private gardens on stormwater management practices to help reduce runoff to private gardens and encourage pollinator-friendly planting and pesticide alternatives. So those are the ones that of that really long list sort of floated to the top. So Mira, before I call you, I just want to get a sense, is this, I mean, did I accurately reflect where people were coming from? I mean, I just sort of took the voting and summarized it, but there's no huge surprises based on your personal input for those who did it, correct? Okay, so Miriam and then Gail, because I think it's now, the question is, now that we've done this, which was the helpful consolidation summary exercise, where do we go from here?
Yeah.
So Miriam, you're on.
Well, yeah, and again, my apologies for not doing my priorities. So I just thought I'd weigh in. And I think, looking over the list, there's a little bit of redundancy. Like if you look at that first item and then you go down later where we're talking about stormwater, regulatory review, culvert inventory. I mean, that's all kind of part of that same topic. So I'm not sure that those are separate things really. I definitely, if I were filling this out in time, I would have put that first paragraph around stormwater management as a high priority. And I think that, emergency management resilience is, which is kind of capturing some of these other ideas like microgrid feasibility or, how do we support vulnerable populations during emergencies. That also strikes me as being something that is would be a high priority, I think. So
Cool.
Just talking about priorities, not actions at this point.
Yeah, no, that's all right. Thank you. Gail and then Nate.
I think that was the problem, though, that each one of these boxes contains 3, 4, 5 different actions.
Yeah.
And what this really comes up with is that there are basically 3 areas. I would say stormwater management and a whole bunch of tasks that would fall under that.
Right.
Town solar, a whole bunch of tasks that would fall under that. Invasive species, a whole bunch of tasks that would fall under that. And that that seems to be pretty clearly taken care of here, because these are overlapping and not task specific, or the tasks are all mixed up within general feelings. So I'm happy with how this has turned out insofar as it shows 3 general areas. And I think it's up to us to define tasks within those areas. And Michael, I'm sure that you're going to ask us each as individuals to sign up for specific tasks within those areas.
You're so
I
smart.
guess what I want to just say is if I had filled this out, I don't think we would have ended up necessarily with the same top 3, because I don't know if I would have put invasive species in the top 3.
That's okay.
So I'm voting now.
No, well, I think, we have what we have with a list, which is sort of, I mean, Nate, just to jump the queue for a second. I think Gail's observation that we have general themes identified, and what happens after that is worthwhile. So I don't think we have to stop at the top three. I think that's, we've got 10.
Yeah.
Clearly there's a clumping of several that people really feel strongly about, but I don't think this is like, oh, you came in with your fifth choice and therefore we're not going to deal with it. So I think that's part of this conversation, is to figure out for 2023, what's a manageable approach given how this, regardless of where it fell in the rating scale. So Nate, and then Leslie, and then Mary Jo.
Yeah, I was just going to comment on one of the challenges that I had in approaching this task, and I think a big issue for me was wanting to identify priorities that are fairly squarely in ECAC's lane, and while feeling a little unsure about what the contours of some of the other town entities, what their responsibilities are. So for example, with emergency communications, I know there's an emergency management team in town, but is this something that they would necessarily take up if we did not? So that's just a lens that I had as I tried to navigate the process of identifying priorities. And then I would absolutely second Gail's comments. That there's what's our comparative advantage as a committee, and then what can we reasonably take up that will have the largest effect for the amount of work that this committee can reasonably undertake, I guess. So those were just a couple of thoughts that I had when I was trying to approach the prioritization of these things.
Thank you, Nate. Leslie?
Well, I just wanted to piggyback about the invasive species, because that was certainly one of my top priorities, was to get the town to stop using all pesticides, insecticides, and any other toxic substances. And I know, using all those chemicals on knotweed is not a good use of the town's money or climate resilience. And another priority that wasn't on the list was remediating the toxic waste dump where they want to put the library, and perhaps moving the library site. But I feel like having a toxic area is not climate resilience. So I just wanted to toss that out. I know some of us on the committee have been working hard at that, but I just wanted to put that out.
I can say I will. There's no way I want to have us step into that one. There's enough players involved in that discussion, as a committee at least.
Yeah, I just want to reiterate, like, no pesticides, no insecticides, no herbicides is important to me. And the other thing that was also important to me, is someone who often from my house in nice weather will bicycle up to the library. It's not really that safe all the time, go biking on Leverett Road. So priority to get, maybe that's something for open space committee, taking out some of the lawn on the side of the road and putting in a bike path so that I don't have to drive there to feel safe, or, et cetera. So I just wanted to throw that out.
Yeah, and I would just say before we go to Mary Jo, we're not making all the other recommendations go away. It's not sort of in our power. It's just sort of lifting them up. So there are lots of things that are really worthwhile, but I think Nate makes a good point, which is we have very little bandwidth as 7 people. And if we can sort of, part of it is, can we take some of the stuff if we see it as important, and figure out who owns it and how to encourage them to do it if it's not us, and then take on stuff that we feel we can do. So Mary Jo and then Gail.
So I wanted to comment on the invasive species concept. And just say that if you kind of look into it and flip it from a negative to a positive, what we're talking about is the value of native plants. and the value of native plants in this context, specifically for human survival and for ecosystem resilience, right? And that really, to me, speaks to nature-based solutions a lot. And if you think about what it is that the state is willing to fund, nature-based solutions is something that the state is willing to fund. The other thing that the state is willing to fund are solutions related to environmental justice. So if I were going to suggest kind of a more, I don't know what I say, maybe more interesting, compelling, whatever, encompassing number 3, rather than saying, go tear out invasive plants, you could talk a little bit more about solutions that are good for the environment as a whole, for the ecosystem as a whole, regenerating, and then also solutions that are good for the community, and looking particularly at populations that might not be having difficulty just in an emergency, but just might have some difficulty with survival economically, because of the pressures that are being created on our economy by changing climate.
Great. Thank you. Gail?
I just wanted to point out that in your first column here, plan, the MVP plan, this has been handed off by the select board to us as a charge. But there's also the open space and recreation plan, which has, quote, responsible committees for various topics which align with these. It's not like ECAC is alone in having to pull all these things into action. So again, it goes into a collaboration with other town committees toward solution of these stated problems. So the big issue on any one of these definitions will have various tasks within it, and we are in a position, I think, to corroborate actions taken by other committees in town toward these ends. It's not like we as the ECAC have to accomplish all of these things on our own.
Yeah, I would agree. Miriam, and then I'm going to chime in. You're muted.
Yeah, thanks. I think we need to think about, in setting priorities, what we can handle in terms of our capacity, as well as the town's capacity to take on things. I think that, developing a comprehensive invasive species management plan, that's probably low-hanging fruit. It's not a huge ask, for example, to try to get an agreement from the highway department not to spray. And I imagine that there might be other committees. I think the Conservation Commission would support that. So again, that we don't need to do months of study in order to make recommendations to the town that it set a policy, because I think that information's probably pretty readily available. So I guess I'm just want to pitch the idea that we maybe pick one thing and then see how deep we're going to get into it before, and then, maybe move on to another project. It seems like we'll keep ourselves from burning out.
Well, what I was thinking we would do, and sort of, I think Gail sort of guessed it. So I want to just test out this idea that if we, for say the next 2 months, keeping in mind that the FinCom is going to have their budget meetings. So if there's stuff we want to do and we need to hire a consultant for those activities, we don't have any money. We don't have a budget line item in the town. So what I was going to suggest is if people wanted to self-identify and say, I'm willing to be part of a work group, which might be just, some email exchanges and some discussions or whatever, to tease out what this is. And my starting point is where Gail went, which is looking at like this first one about assessing green infrastructure and the other one about stormwater, smush them together and say stormwater is an issue. Like it comes up in these three things. How do we as a committee see going forward? It could be a multi-year complex thing. It could be a few month easy thing. Is there money that we should be asking for? I think the lesson I took away when we were asking about the ARPA funds was the select board didn't want to fund us because some of our line items were not researched enough. And granted, we didn't have enough time and we didn't have the ability to sort of come up with hard numbers. But I think starting with that process, and then we can go forward to the select board or the FinCom and say, for stormwater, these are the things that we're thinking we can do. It could just be initiating conversations with other committees, Highway Department, Concom. There's some other stuff that we could do, but just if 2 or 3 people wanted to sort of have an interim conversation and then report out in maybe January or February about this is what we came up with for either next steps or activities, identifying if there's money that we might want to ask for, just to sort of make this real. And it could be that, to Mira's point, we do something as a whole committee, sort of like we have, Nate did the heavy lift around TCA, but we had several conversations and then we all participated in the forum. So that's also a possibility, but I think just teasing this out based on really general themes, so I think Gail said it, there's stormwater, there's municipal solar, there's invasive species, those are the top 3. And then if people felt, just looking at this, the master plan, I could talk to Nate about, because that was, I think, his high priority. But there's the whole regulatory component. The vulnerable populations is a standalone, but that could be a conversation. And then I think the 2 things about, one could smush together the homeowner incentives and the homeowner education.
Stormwater.
So, well, the last one's stormwater, the other one's about energy. So that's what I was thinking, because we can't really discuss all of these in this meeting. And not everyone cares as much as some as others. So Gail and then Miriam, if you want to comment.
So in the open space and recreation plan, the select board committed to hiring professionals to do a couple of these essays. So it's not like up to us to come up, particularly with the culverts, for instance.
Yeah.
And with the what was one of the other ones? I think the invasive species management. The select board was going to hire a consultant to make those assessments and make a recommendation, which we and other committees could then act upon. But it's not like it's up to us to come
Gail,
with.
what happened with those recommendations? Did the select board just never act on it, or?
Correct. And this is the problem with the select board handing on MVP to the ECAC, open
Yeah.
space handing on to the select board or Concom. It's who's there to receive and acknowledge and actually act on these recommendations. But one of the advantages of the open space and recreation plan that we did this time was to get a commitment from those committees responsible for each of these actions to actually do it. So it isn't like we dream this up and then suggest they do it. No, select board has committed to hiring a consultant to assess the culverts and make some assessment public that we can act upon.
And I would say, Gail, that's exactly the stuff of what a work group of 2 or 3 people should do, is to figure out what's happened, what's the status, what needs to happen to move it forward. Is there anything left out? Because,
Right.
I'm happy to go to the select board on the behalf of ECAC and say, we had a conversation about this and we thought there was a commitment, but it's not clear that there is, or this was discussed, but this part of it wasn't. Like,
Right.
I think if we can just have that conversation, I don't think it's a complex one. It's just sort of getting a sense of the moving parts.
It's clarity about responsibility and commitment. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And the select board may be, oh, I'm sorry, I'm talking.
That's all right. Go ahead.
Well, the select board may have made the commitment, but it may be conditional upon funding.
Yeah,
It strikes me for the stormwater stuff that there's kind of two different, and I think this is a good idea to have maybe get a couple people to kind of do some research and winnow things down. But when I think about the pots of activities, action steps, there's the one which is kind of maybe grant writing or supporting the town in grant writing in order to do some of that stuff, like getting consultants or doing an engineering plan or whatever, do a culvert assessment. And then the other pot for stormwater might be considering recommending to the town regulations, a regulatory approach.
That's one of these options.
And that's one of those items. And then
Yeah.
it's a different
different character.
it's a
Right.
different character.
Yep.
It's about perhaps passing a stormwater municipal bylaw, perhaps, that involves some regulation of stormwater. There are some towns have driveway bylaws that kind of spell out in more detail what people do with their driveways vis-a-vis stormwater. Because right now, that's it's all kind of vaguely managed with curb cut permits from the highway department. But anyway, again,
Yeah.
that's in that pot, the regulatory pot.
I have just a technical question. I don't think I'm still sharing the screen. Am I, are you
Yes,
seeing
you
it?
are.
Or I am, okay.
Yep.
I'm trying to make it go away. Give me a second here. I'm a little confused.
Zip
right?
way.
Let's see. Oh, there it is. Okay, got it. Much better. Now I
Hello,
can.
hello.
Thank you. So how about this? Because it's starting to feel like we're talking a little bit in circles. So let's just can I just get a sense of where, if people were to be part of like a subsequent conversation with one or two other people, where you might want to do that? So for stormwater, who would be interested in having stormwater conversation? And it's not mutually exclusive. You can be in more than one, but who would be interested in stormwater? Miriam. Okay. And Zoe. And I'll do stormwater too. So,
Can you give us the three options? Like, is stormwater part of the culverts or?
well, I think it's more than three, but the three initial pots, and then I really want to not leave off the other ones, but the stormwater, there's town municipal, and there's invasive species. So those are the three bigger ones at the top, but I think then subsequent, we should just figure out, what the other ones are. So.
Michael, you mean town municipal solar,
Yeah, what did I say?
town municipal.
Oh, yes, sorry. Long day.
It's
Um,
only Tuesday.
Yeah, it's a long week and it's only Tuesday. Let's put it that way. So Zoe, me, and Miriam would be interested in doing that. So on town municipal solar. Okay, Gail and Nate. Leslie, you're not raising your hand, and Graham? Okay.
Well, I mean, I see there are three competent people and the
Okay,
invasive species
that's
is
fine.
another pet peeve of mine.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Okay, and
I
then so
mean, I'm
invasives.
happy to be part of all of the conversations, actually.
Okay, and then invasives, who's interested in invasive species? So Nate and Leslie and Zoe. Okay. Cool.
So are we gonna form these as work groups that have to be posted and?
Hold on, let me just go through the list for a second.
Low down.
Such a
Sorry.
troublemaker.
I
Okay,
am a
so
troublemaker.
I know, well, takes one to know one, as they say. So, so number 5, you guys should see this, right? So number 5 is culverts and bridges, so I'm going to categorize that as stormwater. I'm jumping over master plan for a second. Number 7 is regulatory process about impervious cover and stormwater. So
We
that's
can't see the
stormwater.
numbers you're referring to. Do you want to move a little to the left?
I don't know if I can.
I can see it.
You can see it?
Yeah.
Okay, I moved it. Never mind.
Okay, never mind. You got that, Zoe? We have to play that.
I will. I'll
let's
send
see.
her some.
Okay, and then
You
so
too.
eight is vulnerable population, so that's a separate one, which we can circle back on. 9 is,
I'll take that on with contacting the emergency blah, 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 blah thing.
emergency management team.
Yeah, that was a very good point, Graham or Nate or whoever suggested that.
Okay,
That should be in their purview.
okay. And I mean, I think it's gonna take on a different flavor now that.
Yep.
Oh my goodness,
What?
fire chief retired. Name,
Walter
Walter, thank you.
Tibbetts.
Yeah,
Oh.
now that Walter's retired, it'll probably, I'm not sure where it's at, but.
It's
he was-
Lenny, I think Lenny Zerwanka.
It's Len Zulanka,
Okay,
is now fire chief,
oh, I didn't know that.
full
Cool.
time.
Really? Okay.
Yep.
So it will take on a different flavor, with different leadership. And then, so the last two are supporting incentives for individual homeowners around self-sufficiency, around solar and battery storage. So conceptually, if it
That's
was,
related to the municipal though.
I was gonna say, if you guys that are doing that want to sort of pick up that piece.
Yep.
And then the last one is the educating private owners about private gardens and stormwater management. I would say that's stormwater, just a different variation
Yeah.
on the theme.
Yes and no. Open space is interested in that, actually.
But it'll still become under a general conversation,
Yeah,
whether it
never
gets
mind.
shuffled off or not. And I mean, there's stuff in here, pollinator friendly planting, but
Yep.
that's part of, like what's a nature-based solution
Yeah,
to
yeah.
stormwater. And so I think the other only remaining one is the master plan. And I guess I would say, since Nate, if you and I wanted to talk about it, but I can just briefly tell you that although I think it's really important, there's no way in hell I can see the planning board doing it in the next year. Just until we know that we don't have 5 special permits that are off the
Oh,
horizon. It's like we keep sort of waiting to not take on big projects because we can't start something and then get sidetracked.
Reality
So,
check. Yeah.
yeah, so I think it's important, but Nate,
Yeah, I picked it just from that perspective of the potential for heavy leverage for our committee's objectives. And I think it's just one of those spaces where the rubber hits the road, and if you can get your perspective represented there, then you've done a lot of work for the amount of effort that you put in. So I was just looking for those opportunities.
yeah, and I totally support it. I actually, just as an FYI, we had a planning board meeting yesterday, and in January, we're going to talk about bylaws that we might want to consider, and one of them that I am proposing is stormwater. So,
Yay.
All right.
So if you want to have that conversation, come in January. And I think, Nate, like if you want to talk about the master plan, I wouldn't be the only one. I just don't think it's going to go anywhere. It's sort of like rolling the rock up the hill. But I told, from a leverage perspective, the master plan, the last time it was done was 2008, and climate was not part of any of those conversations. So I think practically, I don't see it as a work group, although we can keep it. So at this point, we have 4 work groups: stormwater, town municipal solar, invasives, vulnerable populations, which is really just Gail talking to the emergency management team. So I think we're sort of making progress a little. So to answer your question, Miriam, I would say if people wanted to meet so we're supposed to meet, I just want to actually check the date with everybody, but our January meeting, if we do the second Tuesday, will be January 10th. So if we met on January 10th, I know it's sort of funky between now and then, but if everyone can meet once as a work group and maybe sort of do some talking about, what it takes and things, or we can move the meeting later in the month if that would give people more time. But it seems like having at least one conversation, and we can all report out and figure out, and maybe share in advance with me, and I'll put it together, what people came up with, so we can sort of have a roadmap. And I can maybe share some questions, but I'm thinking, sort of to Gail's point, what are the different or Miriam's point, what are the different pots? So what are the different vectors of things? What are particular activities? Is it an ECAC thing? Is it other committee things? Is there money involved? Some of those questions. So Miriam, Nate, and then Gail.
Yeah, one thought about the stormwater management, Michael, and I'm gonna make a suggestion that you do this. I'm volunteering you, is
Okay,
that I think it would be good to have a conversation with Becky and or Tim about what they see as priorities to help inform our thinking, a little bit of research. And I think that you would be the right person to be doing that, Michael.
okay. Well, as part of that work group, I'd consider doing that, and then I could bring it
Thank
back to our
you.
little group.
I think that would be great.
Yeah.
So then the second question is, are we going to be properly constituted or formally constituted work groups, which means we vote on them? And then they have to post and have open meetings. I mean, we're talking about them as if they're working groups, which means I think that we have to do that.
Even if
as
we
you
don't
know,
vote, they'd be
they're
considered work
they're
groups.
still working groups, right?
Right.
And so we need to help everybody understand who
Yeah.
are maybe a little less experienced with this and haven't learned the
When-
hard way
Yeah,
about what this entails. We need to do that.
yeah, I'll do that after we get to
Okay.
Nate and Gail and then Leslie. Oh, Gail, you put your hand down. We're
No,
still in queue. Okay, so Nate, Leslie, and then Nate, Gail, and Leslie.
Miriam covered my question exactly. It was what the rules were for getting together. If it's just like 3, but then if it's a working group, and then it's
Yeah, I'll just jump in.
Okay.
It's worth answering. So as Miriam alluded to, this came up in the last year and a half. And so, members can engage in deliberation if you're a sub quorum and normally speaking. So if there was 3 of us talking, even if it was about something that was the business of the committee, we could do it legally because it's sub quorum, and a sub quorum can't make any decisions on behalf of the committee. So many people throughout the Commonwealth don't understand that, but I'm pretty clear about that, having researched it a lot. But the caveat is, if a committee creates a work group or any version of that, there's lots of different names for it, but basically people getting together to do some shared
Subcommittee.
work. Yeah, subcommittee. I mean, there's like variations, and some people say, well, we're not this, but we're that. In effect, if the larger committee is expecting a subgroup to do some work and report out on something, and they're deliberating with intent, then they become a public body. So you have to sort of post your meeting, and then, I think we'd have to figure out how to post it.
You probably have to post it and put it on Zoom.
Yeah, well, you
And
definitely,
you have to take minutes.
yeah, you have to do it. I was just sort of stuttering through how we do the Zoom thing, because I think it's an ECAC meeting, it gets labeled, and either I could post it or Grace could probably do it. But so that's sort of the rules of the road. But if we do one meeting, not a terribly big deal. So Gail, and then Leslie, and then Graham. And I'll
So
just
if I
say,
recall, each of those groups had only 3 people, right?
right.
Could
Michael, I
you
would-
send an email to each of those 3 telling who those 3 people are?
Yes,
They can decide among themselves when they will meet and if they will indeed be ready to report back to the committee as a whole on the 10th.
I will definitely do all of that. I feel like we should figure out what our next meeting might be before we get off, but other than that, I think we're.
Michael, there's one more thing I want to just add to that,
Yeah,
and that has to do with email communication. If you're a working group, you cannot be emailing ideas and brainstorming by
right.
email.
Very
You
good
can't
catch.
do that because that is a absolute open meeting law violation. So
because
you
you're a
can
body.
you can only have these discussions in open meetings. You can't have it over, you can't go for a walk, the 3 of you, or 3 of us, or you, for example, and do it by email.
But we could schedule meetings by email. That's
Schedule, well, no, scheduling, but if it's brainstorming.
no discussion,
Right,
no deliberation.
Yeah.
Got it.
Correct. Yeah, great point. Let's see, Leslie and then Graham.
I'm a little confused about meetings. I thought we moved it to the first Tuesday, and January 10th, I have a speaking engagement, and you mentioned maybe pushing it back. So if we push it back to the 17th, that certainly would be better for me, and maybe we all might have something to report too.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
I won't be at the January 10th because I'm already have something else.
Okay. Well, let me check on the date after Graham chimes in. Graham, what would you like to share?
Just to say, so my understanding is we're sub-quorum and that we can talk and bring stuff back to the committee without doing emails. I mean, that sounds like if we had to, if we had to record minutes and stuff like that, that would probably be a debilitating overhead.
Yeah. But so in this instance, because it's an intentional grouping, it's not a sub-quorum. It is actually becomes a public body where you have to notice it and meet. I mean, it's a pain in the neck.
and take
And
minutes.
take minutes. Yeah, I mean, you don't have to do extensive minutes, but you have to have minutes of which we're gonna have to have notes to report out, so.
Grace is gonna hate this.
Well, we're doing it the way she wants it.
Yeah, but there are only 3 Zoom accounts.
Oh, well,
Anyway, never mind.
well, one can always.
That's
there's
life in
only-
a big city.
Yeah, well, it's always the possibility, there's only 3 people, one can meet in town hall. So, it's up to, like I've gone in for planning board stuff and been in the little room upstairs with 3 people. So it's all a matter of what comfort level it is.
Yep.
But you
Um,
still have to post it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but then you have to do the Zoom.
Yeah.
So, well, in terms of our next meeting, do we want to do the 17th? To Leslie's point, it's a Tuesday, that's good, works. Okay, I got 2 thumbs.
Yes,
Oh, no, I got lots of thumbs. Cool, okay,
Okay.
so we'll do that. So let's plan on the 17th for our next meeting. I'll send it an email to remind you what group you're part of. And I would say if we just commit to having 1 meeting each of the small groups, and then we can report back and we'll have a better sense of where we're going. But so number 1, thank you. It's sort of a tedious process, but I think it is actually helpful in terms of getting our head wrapped around some of this work. Leslie, is that a new hand?
it's a new hand.
Okay. What's up?
Because I'm also planning a schedule of work events in February, so I was trying to hold off on the first Tuesday of the month. So is that kind of not happening? Like I could do something on trying to figure out.
Oh, it's a good question. I
Thank
gotta
you.
say, I'm not, I was looking at when we were meeting and I was like, oh, maybe we decided on the 2nd Tuesday, and I didn't go back to look at my emails to actually confirm that. So the first, if we want to set the February date, the first Tuesday is the 7th, the second one's Valentine's Day, which is the 14th. So unless anyone's doing something special for Valentine's Day, we can meet then, which is a month after the January meeting.
Mhm,
So does that work for people?
Sure.
Okay,
Doesn't feel very, very Valentine's-y to me.
that's true. Well, we can all bring some chocolate to the meeting and eat it separately.
So
Oh,
we've
you know
just
what?
shifted our one.
You know what? I
monthly
don't
meeting-
want to do it that night.
Okay,
Anyway,
you want
Yeah.
to do it on the 7th?
yeah.
No, I think if we're pushing it to the 17th, why don't we just stay with the 3rd Tuesday? I mean, I know there was the first Tuesday, but then we're at least going every 4 weeks. But
Anyone
that's-
have a strong opinion?
Well, that's the Valentine's Day
No,
No.
the 3rd is the 21st.
in February.
Yeah. The 7th is the first Tuesday, the 14th is the
Got it.
second Tuesday.
Got it. Okay,
21st?
sure.
Okay, I got 1 thumb from Zoe, so,
Sure.
okay, 21st it is.
Yay!
Okie
And I
dokie.
look forward to Eric coming back maybe in January or February. We're coming.
Yes. So
Yeah,
Zoe,
he confused the date. He thought it was Wednesday, but he can do the 17th.
great, perfect. So tell him
Wonderful.
he'll, same time, same bat station. Do you know that one? The original Batman TV show. Same bad time, same bad station. Okay, how about a
Well, thank
motion to
you.
adjourn?
Yes.
Okay, second, who wants to second it? Cool. Okay, so Nate,
Aye.
Leslie,
Hi.
Gail,
Hi.
Zoe,
Aye.
Miriam,
Aye.
Graham,
Aye.
and I'm an I. Thank you all for a very full conversation and have a good rest of the week. It was a pleasure seeing everybody.
Shall I send you all Rosanna Dana?
Sure.
Sure.
Yes.
We'll call that housekeeping. It's definitely not substantive. Okie dokie.
Thank you,
See
Michael.
later.
Bye.
Michael,
Yeah.
who was on the stormwater? Who was the stormwater? Was Miriam, Michael, and who?
Zoe,
Zoe. Okay, got it.
yeah, I'll
And,
send it out and you can cheat.
okay, municipal solar was Graham, Nate, and who?
Gail,
Gail. Got it. Of course.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
okie dokie.
Got 'em. Yeah. Thank you.
See you
Thank
guys.
y'all.